Well, seems like an edge rusher that's available right now via trade deadline is available for a day 3 pick and could be affordable one for the Eagles if Vic Fangio wants to go that route. We're going to be talking about Jahan, Dotson. Nick Sirianni has finally broke his silence on the Jahan Dotson situation. And we're going to be talking about Isaiah Rodgers. That had a little bit of a question involving his only year in Philadelphia on contract and what his future holds. This is what he had to say, so let's get straight into it.
A killer buried, but not dead.
Darren, we better turn around. Because I've seen enough horror movies to know any weirdo wearing a mask is never friendly.
This video is sponsored by BetUS. It has been a rough road for the Philadelphia Eagles this season for all Eagle fans. Will the Eagles rise to the occasion or continue to play down to the competition? If I'm going all in, giving it my all for a Super Bowl, I'm going to bet $500 and get $7,000 back at the end of the year, and we still stay true to the team that we believe in. But will the problems continue? We will find out. Make sure to check out BetUS. Get a 150% deposit bonus on your first 3 deposits up to $2,000 with promotion code YouTube150. I want to thank BetUS for sponsoring this live stream or video, and let's get back to the content. So here we are, sitting right now with more news on the Philadelphia Eagles, some things that we definitely have to talk about here. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is the Jahan Dotson situation, because I think we all want to know, Howie Roseman, why'd you trade for Jahan Dotson, a 3rd-round pick, and I think a 7th or a 6th, whatever it was, okay? Why isn't he getting involved as of right now? So, the Jahan Dotson situation, this is what Nick had to say about the Jahan Dotson situation here. He says, again, I don't get into that with you guys. As far as this is the person's role, that's kind of something I have with our team with, hey, this is what your role is, what your job description is, this is what we need you to do. What I will say, though, is that I know the ball didn't come to Jahan on Sunday, but I did notice him blocking his butt off and helping our run game go. I think there's a play on Saquon's bubble screen that we threw to him that Dotson got a block that allowed Saquon to have success. He played tough and played strong and was able to get that block. I see him improving every day. Just being around the guys that he's around, Eagles wide receiver coach Aaron Moorhead's doing a good job, and Dotson's doing a good job of getting better. This is a really tough thing for me, man. I mean, this isn't a 5th-round receiver you have, sitting on your bench that's coming in. This isn't a Johnny Wilson coming into a game to block for you right now. This is a guy that you traded for, okay? You don't trade for a guy like this just for good blocking. You're trading for a guy like this to get his opportunities. And unfortunately, from recent past with Zacchaeus and Quez Watkins, we haven't really had that much wide receiver 3 success, or, I mean, at least with Quez Watkins, we really got him mostly involved than a lot of other wide receiver 3s that we've had here. Zacchaeus, I thought, honestly, was a better fit for this offense last year, but unfortunately did not, they just never gave him an opportunity. Not that Zacchaeus didn't have any skill set, they just never gave him an opportunity. And like I said, Quez Watkins was just a guy that, unfortunately, in the big moments, just couldn't reel it in for us. Couldn't really trust him in those big moments for us. Now, I'm just talking about the Super Bowl, but other moments as well, where, if your number is called and, maybe A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith is not open or something like that, you have to be ready for it. But it's really sad to me that Britton Covey has more receptions still. With Britton Covey being out for the past few weeks, okay, Britton Covey has more receptions than Jahan Dotson right now. I think he has like 7 receptions. Jahan Dotson's been here for 8 weeks, and he only has 30-something yards. I mean, you would have thought when A.J. Brown was out with his hamstring injury, and when Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown weren't in a game, or when A.J. Brown missed a few games, you would have thought that they would have at least dialed in or got Jahan Dotson the ball. This isn't, I don't think we're questioning the skill set of Jahan Dotson. I think Nick brings him in here to do a lot of the dirty work, and I think he is making these players really work for, getting the football. I don't agree with not getting him involved. And I'm not saying you got to throw to him 10 times a game, but, I've seen Jahan Dotson on some of these dump offs, or like he'll be on the flat, like waiting for the ball, and Hurts just throws it downfield. And I don't blame Jalen Hurts for that. But, Dotson's like, hey, I'm here if you want to throw it to me. And that's pretty much it. I don't get why you give up that much high draft capital. And like a third round pick may not seem a lot, but it is. It kind of is. I think it's a steal trade, and we're kind of getting laughed at. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. Like, I've seen other fan bases laugh at us. They have Jahan Dotson, they don't even use him, blah, blah, blah. But a lot of other fans don't really know that how we've really treated this wide receiver 3 position like the redheaded stepchild. They potentially got a number 2 receiver in Philadelphia playing as a number 3 that can play on the inside, that can play on the outside. If the blocking is what he's really good at right now, and it's helping us win football games, I think the ball to him will come at some point. It just sucks that we've given up a 3rd and a 6th, or a 3rd and a 7th for him. I forgot what the late round pick was, and there's just no opportunity there. You know what I mean? Jahan Dotson is a starting receiver in the league. Is a starting receiver of the league. I don't think this has anything to do with Dan Quinn saying that Jahan Dotson expected the job and he didn't feel like he had to work for it. And, this weak mindset that Dan Quinn said that Jahan Dotson had coming into camp, whatever those rumors were, whether they were true or false. I don't think the Eagles would trade for a player like that, to be honest with you. So when it comes down to receiver, I mean, when Britton Covey beginning of this season, I understand Jahan Dotson got traded. Okay, came to Philadelphia, had to wait some weeks to get used to the terminology. Like, I get it. Like, it takes time. I get it. This offense has taken a lot of time. This defense has taken a lot of time week by week. But because Covey's been in the system for the last few years, Covey was used at the end of last year, the offense, just a little bit in 23. And then they really started using them this year, and I really liked it a lot. Covey still has more receptions than Jahan Dotson, and as a number 3, or not even a number 3, Covey is not even a 3, and he's getting more opportunities in this offense. So if they found like they talked to Jahan, they're giving him a role, and, the Eagles don't lose Jahan Dotson unless they want to trade him after this year, they could do that. Jahan Dotson's on this roster for another year for like a little over $3 million for the year. So it's actually really cheap. It's actually not even that bad just to hold on to him for another year. Your wide receiver core is set. Both your receivers and Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown are locked up. But, when you have injuries and you have a quarterback that doesn't have chemistry with these other receivers, God forbid it's like a game to win the East or a game to get into the number 1 seed, and you don't have an A.J. Brown on the field, you don't have a Devontae Smith on the field maybe, and because you didn't use Jahan Dotson early in the season and develop this chemistry between Hurts and these receivers, it's a fucking problem to me. And that's where I kind of say, hey, when you need Jahan Dotson at some point during the season for some reason, you better hope that quarterback and that wide receiver are on point with each other, because if they're not, this is the reason why you have to get them involved a little early and not ignore them the entire game for game every single week. So, I don't think obviously every receiver always wants to be a star, wants to get his catches. I get it. Jahan Dotson was talked to, given a job. So there's no bad blood in this, because obviously if he's making good blocks, I haven't really even checked on some of the blocks that he's made. So I guess this makes sense in some capacity. But like I said, he needs to get chemistry with this guy. I think if it's Covey, great. If it's Jahan Dotson, not Johnny Wilson, some of these, and Paris Campbell's not here anymore, but some of these other guys like Jahan Dotson, I feel like he really needs to get chemistry with him. So we'll see what happens in the coming weeks, but I don't want this to feel like it's a bad trade. It's already enough that Bryce Huff is not seeming like the biggest, great signing right now, and hopefully this defense continues to make plays, but Jahan Dotson is definitely a big question there. Now, Isaiah Rodgers was asked the question, obviously, this is his 1 year in Philadelphia. The Eagles took a chance on him last season when he was suspended for a whole year because of the gambling. And the Eagles were the only team that were interested. And let me tell you something. He watched every Eagles game last year. He went to the offseason pretty much last season Well, really throughout the whole year, he was working out. He was putting a lot of stuff on social media, wearing this custom white Eagles helmet, and he was doing some really cool things. Really telling us, Philly fans, watch out because I'm coming to take someone's job and I want to get my opportunity. This is a 3-year player, a 3-year starter that not only can play corner, that can play special teams, has a special team pedigree on kick return as well. So it says, from Zach Berman, says, Isaiah Rodgers was asked how a starting opportunity can help his stock around the NFL as a pending free agent. He says, quote unquote, I want to perform for the guys and the higher ups here. I want to make a lot of players here. I want to make a lot of plays here so I can find a way to stay here for the rest of my career. There are players that are, look, Isaiah Rodgers is not going to get number 1 cornerback money. I think he'll get a substantial contract, and I think this would make sense for the Eagles to re-sign him because Cooper DeJean's not going to get paid for a while, okay? And obviously, Quinyon Mitchell has 4 years with a 5th-year option. So you have a while until you pay some of these guys in the secondary. There's really no rush to pay anybody. But as a cheaper option or a veteranish type option, which Slay seems to be hurt right now with a groin injury, Isaiah Rodgers is getting his shot. And just to let you all know, I think Slay's been hurt the last few weeks. I think he's been dealing with something because he's gotten hurt a few times in the last few games, came back in. So I feel like he is dealing with something, and now he's got this groin injury now where Isaiah Rodgers is going to put on a show, not just for the Eagles, but for the rest of the league. Now, I think the biggest thing, I think why he wants to stay in Philadelphia is because when you're in a good spot, you're either going to say, you know what, let me go to a bad team and get as much money as I possibly can, or you're going to say, let's try to work something out with the Philadelphia Eagles because I like the guys and I feel like I could be something big here with this secondary as a starting corner, as a number 2 behind Quinyon Mitchell or something like that. Because realistically, this is the team that really, the Colts drafted him, I think, and this is a team that's taken a chance on him. The only team that took a chance on him after that during that gambling situation. He said it. Look it up. The Eagles were the only team that went after Isaiah Rodgers to sign him while being suspended for the year. And let me tell you something. This was a good signing for the Eagles because this was an insurance policy in case the draft didn't go the way it went. And let me tell you, it fell right into our hands with Quinyon Mitchell. And because there was 14, 15 offensive players taken, really in the first round of the draft, it landed Cooper DeJean in a perfect trade up in the second round. That's another first-round talent. So with Eli Ricks and having, obviously Keely Ringo, and Slay, the depth is just enormous right now. We don't know what to do with all this depth because we've never been in a situation like this. We've always had aging corners. We've always tried young corners that weren't, picked too early. But Howie Roseman has changed his philosophy, and I feel like the Eagles drafted 2 superstars, and I thought they signed a great player in Isaiah Rodgers that potentially could be your number 2. I am on board, for re-signing Isaiah Rodgers. When it comes to Isaiah Rodgers, when it comes to Zach Bond, when it comes to Mekhi Becton, maybe, depending how this Tyler Steen, Mekhi Becton things happen this year. Okay, I think Isaiah Rodgers can be re-signed at a good cost, okay? And, Rodgers is what, 25? He's relatively still young, 25, 26, relatively very, very young with a lot of football in his career left, okay? Not hyping him up to be a shutdown or anything like that, but when we signed Isaiah Rodgers, I said they picked up a really good player that no one else is picking up because they just don't have use for them last year because he can't play because of the suspension for the gambling. Now, because teams are now probably regretting it, and Isaiah Rodgers is like, I honestly want to stay with the team that took a chance on me. Kind of like he was drafted in Philadelphia or reinvented in Philadelphia in his own way, liking the guys around him. And I actually like him as a player, and I actually really like him as a person from getting to know watching some of these interviews with him. He's very professional, but he's got a mean streak. And trust me, every player that passed up on signing him while he was suspended, he's taking that to heart. And I think this is a really lucky find by Howie Roseman. And this is a really lucky, I think there's a lot of interesting things going into next season. Okay, I know we have a lot to worry about this season. We have a lot of interesting things to talk about after the season's over with because they're in a really good situation at cornerback. They're in a really good situation at linebacker. They're in a really good situation at right guard right now. There's a lot of really good situational. There's a lot of really good situational situations that they're in now, and. I lock some of these guys up and do your thing. And that's all I care about right now. It's all I care about. So I'm a big fan of re-signing Isaiah Rodgers. Now, how many games is he going to play this season for Slay? They'll never bench Slay. I don't care if Rodgers has 6 picks in 2 games. Okay. It does not matter. Slay will come back in. I think Slay has been playing at a high level. He's been playing fantastic this year. But Isaiah Rodgers, he comes right in. He makes a play. I mean, he covers Jamar Chase, doesn't get fazed by it. Even Fangio said most corners that go up against a really good receiver like that, are going to back down a little bit. They're going to be phased a little bit. But they're afraid to get handsy with a guy and press a little too much on a guy like that, not giving, maybe giving a receiver like that, like Jamar Chase, a lot of space. But, Isaiah Rodgers went in there and he just went toe-to-toe with that guy, slapped that ball away from Jamar Chase, and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson gets the interception. If just think about it like this, because remember when Quinyon Mitchell got to camp, he didn't start on the outside corner spot. He literally was playing nickel pretty much most of the fucking camp, which really pissed me off. I was like, it's a good that we have a number 1 corner that can play inside if he has to play it. Jahan missed the whole entire offseason program besides the last game, so him coming into the whole situation was different. Settling into this defense as it's playing better, and Jahan is a superstar. Get him off the punt returns. But what I can say is this, okay, if Isaiah Rodgers didn't mess up his hand before the first game, Isaiah Rodgers would have been the number 2 cornerback this year, and Quinyon would have been on the inside. Okay, thank God that didn't happen. Okay, to see an injury like Slay's getting, it gives opportunity for other players. Fred Johnson has an opportunity. He's been playing well. Tyler Steen, opportunity playing well. This is how you find out on the back end of your roster what you have. Not really back end with the corners, because I feel like there's a lot of efficient corners that we have right now. Sufficient corners, definitely. So whether this is bullshit or not, I don't know. I think Isaiah Rodgers was passed on by every team, where any team could have just picked him up and they could have gave him a job and while he was suspended. And the Eagles were the only team. I think he respects the Eagles for that, and he likes the players here. They're going to be here. There's a lot of players. If Isaiah Rodgers knows if he signs with Philadelphia, he's going to play with a lot of these guys for a lot of years. A lot of years. Isaiah Rodgers is a lucky find that I hope becomes more lucky down the road this season. And, I know there's a lot of speculation of Slay and trading him or something like that. I just don't think that's going to happen. I really doubt it right now because of his contract and what's going on with him. I really doubt it. I think you really need Slay to play this season. Isaiah Rodgers, though, there's a good chance. He might be very affordable by the end of the year, especially if Slay plays the rest of the year. The Eagles do well, win a Super Bowl, whatever the hell happens, and Rodgers is like, re-sign me. I'm ready to go. Let's do this. And he won't be that expensive if Slay starts over him more games. But God forbid, because Slay's had these nagging injuries, and I think it's finally caught up to him now. He gets his shot. He gets his opportunity not only to, put on a show for the Eagles, but to put on a show for the rest of the league. And if Howie Roseman's going to lock somebody up easily, it's going to happen earlier than never. Okay? So we'll see how that goes when the time comes. That's the news on Isaiah Rodgers. I just wanted to go into depth with that situation just to see where we're at. So hopefully you guys understand that. And lastly, now this might not mean much, but Darius Smith, the edge linebacker, outside linebacker for the Cleveland Browns. Apparently the Browns are asking for a day 3 pick, which is great. That's awesome. For his age and the production that you can get, this is one of the guys I had a lot of interest in, because if you're not going after a Myles Garrett, the Max Crosby thing is definitely off the table, not getting traded. Getting a guy like that at that caliber is just going to cost too much draft compensation. And from what Vic Fangio is saying at this point, he'd rather get a guy he can produce for a few years. So this might not even be something. I'm kind of just reporting this because if it's a day 3 pick, maybe the Eagles say, you know, let's just bring him in for the year, whatever. But Fangio doesn't want to do that. Seems he has a lot of control over what, you know, the Eagles need to do on defense and to acquire players. Seems like Fangio has more power, has final say in how he's going to do with this defense. So that's a really good thing. That's not on Howie Roseman all the time. But the Darius Smith is an older player, gives you production in the rotation, and, you know, won't cost you that much. If it's a day 3 pick, very affordable for the Eagles. Now, he is under contract for multiple years, so this is another thing that they could do. But I don't want them to bring in an edge rusher that's older and then not feel like they have to hit that position next year because the older player is here. These are short-term guys in their careers. They can get hurt at any moment, and like I could be mostly any player, but you know, I don't want to ignore a specific position next year in the draft just because they get an older guy to take that spot. I think we're just looking for depth purposes, veteran depth purpose, and some skill set, and just a little bit more of meat and potatoes on that edge to fortify it a little bit, make it a little bit better, make the rush a little bit better, help Jalen Carter out, help Jordan Davis out, you know, help your inside guys out a little bit, and I think you'll look fine there. So that's the news on that with Darius Smith. But other than that, that's pretty much it. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think Jahan Dotson will get his opportunity? You know, is it just something that Nick's giving him a job to do? Jahan Dotson's understanding it, and that's pretty much it. Let me know on that. Let me know what you guys think is going to happen with Isaiah Rodgers. Let me know what you guys think. You think Ringo is going to be the player that takes over at number 2? Or do you think Rodgers will take over after this year and will be re-signed? Okay? If it was up to me, I'd sign Rodgers in a heartbeat. That's where I would be right now. Because I think Ringo is a good player. I think it's another offseason under his belt. I just think when it comes to his physicality, I think Ringo is great when it comes to his physicality. Back end when he's trying to cover, I just don't think that he's there yet. Good offseason program, but I think you have the better player already in the building, and obviously a lot more playing time and a lot more experience in his career with Isaiah Rodgers since he's played on this level for a few years now. So let me know what you guys think about that entire situation going forward. You guys have a fantastic day. Sorry about the long video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel for more Eagles news every single day. Make sure to check out BetUS and start betting as fast as possible. YouTube promotion code YouTube150, 150% deposit bonus in your first 3 deposits up to $2,000. You'll win some money. I guarantee it. And yeah, like the video, helps out tremendously for the channel. Thank you so much for joining today. I'll see you guys on the next one. Shake some up, follow us. Peace out, guys. Peace.